she said in French, breathless and with a foreign accent. "But I mustn't forget this phone number, and I don't have any paper with me." Now she looked at her hands as if she were seeing them for the first time. "Naturally, I could have." And now, looking back and forth between Gregorious's forehead and her hand, she wrote the numbers on the back of the hand. I didn't want to keep it. I wanted to forget everything. But when I saw the letter fall, I had to hold on to it." The rain on the thick eyeglasses muddied Gregorious's sight, and he groped awkwardly for the wet notebooks. The tip of the felt pen seemed to slide over his forehead again. But then he realized it was now the fingers of the woman, who was trying to wipe away the numbers with a handkerchief. "It is out of line, I know." And now she started helping Gregorious gather up the notebooks. He touched her hand and grazed her knee, and when the two of them reached for the last notebook, they bumped heads. "Thank you very much," he said, when they stood facing each other. He pointed to her head. "Did it hurt?" Absently, looking down, she shook her head. The rain beat down on her hair and ran over her face. "Can I walk a few steps with you?" Yes, of course," Gregorious stammered. Silently they walked together to the end of the bridge and on toward the school. The sense of time told Gregorious it was after 8, and the first hour had already begun. How far was a few steps? The woman had adjusted to his pace and plodded along beside him as if she would go on like that all day. She had pulled the wide collar of her coat so high that from the side Gregorious saw only her forehead. "I have to go in here, into the gymnasium," he said, and stood still. "I'm a teacher." "Can I come along?" she asked softly. Gregorious hesitated and ran his sleeve over his wet glasses. "In any case, it's dry there," he said at last. She went up the stairs. Gregorious held the door open for her, and then they stood in the hall, which seemed especially empty and quiet now that classes had started. Her coat was dripping. "Wait here," said Gregorious, and went to the bathroom to get a towel. At the mirror, he dried the glasses and wiped off his face. The numbers could still be seen on his forehead. He held a corner of the towel under the warm water and wanted to start rubbing when he stopped in the middle of the movement. That was the moment that decided everything, he thought when he recalled the event hours later. That is, all of a sudden he realized that he really didn't want to wipe away the trace of his encounter with the enigmatic woman. He imagined appearing before the class afterward with a phone number on his face. He, Mundus, the most reliable and predictable person in this building, and probably in the whole history of the school, working here for more than 30 years, impeccable in his profession, a pillar of the institution, a little boring, perhaps, but respected and even feared in the university for his astounding knowledge of ancient languages, mocked lovingly by his students, who put him to the test every year by calling him in the middle of the night and asking about the conjecture for a remote passage in an ancient text, only to get every time off the top of his head information that was both dry and exhaustive, including a critical commentary with other possible meanings, all of it presented perfectly and calmly, without a soupçon of anger at the disturbance. Mundus, a man with an impossibly old-fashioned, even archaic first name you simply had to abbreviate, and couldn't abbreviate any other way, an abbreviation that revealed the character of this man as no other word could have, for what he carried around in him as a philologist was in fact no less than a whole world, or rather several whole worlds, since along with those Latin and Greek passages, his head also held the Hebrew that had amazed several Old Testament scholars. "If you want to see a true scholar," the rector would say when he introduced him to a new class, "here he is." And this scholar, Gregorious thought now, this dry man who seemed to some to consist only of dead words, and who was spitefully called the papyrus by colleagues who envied him his popularity, this scholar would enter the room with a telephone number painted on his forehead by a desperate woman apparently torn between rage and love, a woman in a red leather